This video will show you how to assemble the RadCity Step-Thru 3. Photograph all four sides of the box and the label with the serial numbers for your records, and make sure the label is easy to read. Open the bike box and remove the small box from inside. This contains the manual, charger, pedals, headlight, handlebar faceplate hardware, and the assembly toolkit. If included, the 2 rubber spacers will be used when installing the front fender. This assembly toolkit includes 8 and 10, 13 and 15, and 16 and 18 millimeter wrenches, 3, 4, 5, and 6 millimeter Allen wrenches, and a Phillips head and a flathead screwdriver. You will use many, but not all of these tools to assemble the bike. We also recommend using a pair of flat side cutters, a pedal wrench, a bike pump with a Schrader valve and a pressure gauge, a torque wrench with the 4 and 5 millimeter bits, bicycle grease, and a friend to help with the assembly. Carefully lift the bike out of the box and rest it on the rear wheel and the front fork protector plate. Snip the zip ties to remove the front wheel and fender and set them aside. Remove the rest of the packaging material from everything except the handlebar for now, and leave the keys zip-tied to the seat until you are ready to ride. Recycle the packaging material according to local rules. To install the handlebar, first rotate the stem and front fork counterclockwise so the fork arch is in the front and the brake cable is on the left. Make sure no cables are wrapped around the head tube. Use a 5 millimeter Allen wrench to loosen the handlebar angle adjustment bolt. Then adjust the angle of the handlebar stem within the range shown on the side. Torque the bolt to 18 Newton meters. Locate the bag with the 4 bolts and 4 split washers. This is the handlebar faceplate hardware. Remove the bolts from the bag and pass a washer onto each bolt end, and then set them aside near the handlebar. Remove the packaging from the sides of the handlebar. Snip the zip tie securing the stem faceplate to the handlebar. Orient the handlebar so the brake levers face forward, and the 3-button remote is on the rider's left side. Trace the brake cable from the left brake lever to the brake caliper. Make sure the bundle of cables is not twisted. Place the handlebar on the stem so it is properly oriented and centered. Thread in the 4 faceplate bolts by hand. Use a 4 millimeter Allen wrench to tighten the bolts evenly in an X pattern. Torque the handlebar faceplate bolts to 6 Newton meters. Ensure the gap between the faceplate and the stem is evenly spaced. Torque the upper and lower handlebar stem clamp bolts to 10 Newton meters. To install the front wheel, first locate the quick release skewer holding the fork protector plate in place. Open the lever and remove the thumb nut and cone spring on the opposite side. Remove the skewer, keeping the washer and the other cone spring in place on the lever side. Remove the packaging from the front wheel without touching the brake rotor. Pass a skewer through the hub from the brake rotor side of the wheel and reinstall the cone spring on the other side. Both cone springs should point in towards the wheel hub. Thread the thumb nut just a couple of turns, leaving enough room for the fork dropouts. Keep the lever open. Carefully lift the front of the bike, remove the protective plate, and then lower the fork onto the wheel. The brake rotor should go into the brake caliper, in between the brake pads, and the axle should enter the fork dropouts fully. If installing the front wheel is difficult, use a 5 millimeter Allen wrench to widen the gap between the brake pads by turning the inner pad adjuster out or counterclockwise 2 clicks. Check that the wheel is fully seated in the dropouts and that it is centered. Hold the quick release lever in line with the axle and tighten the thumb nut on the opposite side until the lever can stay parallel to the floor without being held. Use the palm of your hand to close the lever fully without touching the brake rotor. There should be enough resistance that the lever leaves an imprint on your palm. Prop the bike on the kickstand. To install the pedals, first apply grease to the threaded portion of each pedal axle. Identify each pedal by the sticker or by the markings on the pedal axle. The right pedal has a smooth axle and threads onto the rider's right side. Carefully thread in the pedal by hand, turning clockwise. The left pedal has grooves on the axle and threads onto the rider's left side. Carefully thread in the pedal by hand, turning counterclockwise. Once each pedal is fully threaded into the proper crank, use a pedal wrench to torque each pedal to 35 Nm. To install the headlight and front fender, first remove the headlight mounting hardware from the fork arch using a 5mm Allen wrench and a 10mm wrench. Pass the fender from the back of the wheel forwards under the fork arch. Pass a washer onto the bolt, and then pass the bolt through the headlight mount, fender mounting point, and the fork arch mounting point. Then install the remaining washer and thread the lock nut onto the bolt end. Use a 5mm Allen wrench and a 10mm wrench to tighten the bolt partway. Center the headlight and adjust the angle slightly downwards to illuminate the ground in front of the bike and to not blind oncoming traffic. Torque the headlight mounting bolt to 6 Nm. To plug in the headlight connector, align the internal notch and pins and external arrows and press together without twisting. Use a 5mm Allen wrench to remove the fender clamp bolt while keeping the backing nut in position. If included, locate the 2 rubber spacers and place one on the inside of the clamp, as shown. Wrap the clamp around the fork without touching the brake rotor, and ensure the fender arm runs on the outside of the brake cable. Insert the bolt and tighten, leaving a small gap. Ensure both sides of the clamp end are parallel, and repeat on the other side. Check that the fender is centered and fully clear of the wheel. Visually inspect the tires and make sure the tire bead is evenly seated around the rim. Use a bike pump with a Schrader valve and a pressure gauge to inflate the tires to between 50 to 60 psi, or the pressure indicated on the tire sidewall. Open the seat quick release lever and remove the seat post. Ensure the clamp is centered over the notch on the seat tube. Apply a small amount of grease to the seat post and install the post so the minimum insertion marking is completely inside the seat tube. Adjust the seat post up or down to a comfortable height. Tighten the adjustment thumb nut on the clamp with the lever in line halfway closed. When you feel resistance, close the lever fully, which should require enough pressure to leave an imprint in your hand. The seat post should not move once the lever is closed. Snip the zip tie holding the key on the seat's grab handle, and use the key to turn on the battery. Check that the battery is locked to the frame. Test the bike fully and work through the pre-ride safety checklist in the owner's manual before riding. The owner's manual contains important details related to safety and maintenance. Read it fully and keep it for future reference. Reach out to Rad Power Bikes product support if you have any questions, and ride rad.